It's that time of the year as Honda and Alpine have cost cap issues. Adrian Newey reveals why Red Bull has been going downhill since his departure, and Lewis Hamilton makes big moves as F1 bosses plan on expanding. Do consider subscribing to the channel. Let's get straight into the latest F1 news. Adrian Newey believes the pressure was starting to get to Max Verstappen in his epic 2021 World Championship battle with Lewis Hamilton, calling Verstappen a bit out of order in Brazil that year. As Verstappen and Red Bull rose in 2021 to challenge Hamilton's streak of Formula One dominance, having claimed 4 titles in a row, the title protagonists found themselves involved in several fierce battles and collisions, their Silverstone and Monza incidents living long in the memory. But Red Bull's former F1 design guru Adrian Newey, who will join Aston Martin in F1 2025, drew attention to the intense scrap between Verstappen and Hamilton in Brazil that year. Both drivers taking to the Turn 4 runoff at one stage as Hamilton looked to go around the outside, while Verstappen went late on the brakes. Hamilton went on to make the overtake and win the race, further ramping up the pressure on Verstappen and Red Bull, with Newey claiming that Verstappen was fortunate to escape a penalty, ultimately crossing the line P2, 10.5 seconds behind Hamilton. Asked during the High Performance podcast whether Verstappen, now a 3-time world champion after going on to take his first crown in 2021, ever shows signs of cracking, Newey replied, "I think a little bit perhaps in his championship win in 21, where the intensity, particularly after Silverstone on track between Lewis and Max, became so intense. I think Max had very strong feelings on that Silverstone accident." And of course, he'd been clear championship leader going into Silverstone, then him out of the race, and then more or less out of the race in Hungary when he got hit by Valtteri Bottas. Not intentional at all, but still got hit and pretty much hardly scored any points, so gone from easy championship leaders to now feeling a bit more pressure. And Mercedes managed to find quite a lot more pace out of their car towards the end of the season. So it's always easier for the hunter than the hunted. And Max was starting, I think, to just feel a little bit of pressure from the hunted. And hence that he was, in reality, probably lucky not to get a penalty for his driving in Brazil. Saudi, where they had a bit of a ding-dong, that was a little bit more. I think that was not clear, but Max was probably a bit out of order in Brazil in truth, so I think he was feeling it a bit. And indeed, Checo, Perez, it's the usual thing. If the teammate they've been beating suddenly starts to get closer, it's not that suddenly the teammates got better. It was the same with Fernando Alonso and Felipe Massa towards the end of 2010. Suddenly they get closer, because the lead driver is feeling the pressure. Verstappen began a run of F1 dominance from 2022, and despite McLaren, Mercedes, and Ferrari having erased said dominance in F1 2024, Verstappen remains in a strong position to claim his 4th world championship in a row, his buffer 62 points over Lando Norris at the top of the drivers' standings. Helmut Marko has said Red Bull's focus should remain on Formula One, to avoid the example of years gone by of performance going down when teams spread their resources. The Red Bull senior advisor pointed to Williams and McLaren as examples of this, for expanding their horizons beyond Formula One and then saying their performance went down as a result, which he hopes to avoid himself. Red Bull has seen its performance advantage eroded by McLaren, Ferrari, and Mercedes over the course of the F1 2024 season so far. But looking more widely, Dr. Marko was asked about what the future looks like for the team. On that topic, he believes the most important thing for them is to keep its primary aim on Formula One, so as to not drop off in performance compared to its rivals at a time when they are preparing to become fully fledged power unit manufacturers from the F1 2026 campaign. If you go back in history, whenever Williams started or McLaren started, not only focusing on Formula One, their performance went down, Marko explained on the Inside Line F1 podcast. So, in our view, we have to focus on Formula One. Yes, we will do the RB17, which is a very special car designed by Adrian Newey, but I think that's a one-off project. We are also involved in America's Cup sailing and other things like that, but the focus should stay on Formula One. And I think the next benchmark is we will have our own engine, which is an enormous project from the financial side and also from the managing side.
So we will be now a real manufacturer. So that will start in 2026. And in the future, our focus will be on winning races.
Yes, winning while racing with our own engine and make always a benchmark. You know, as in the beginning, we do it differently. And that should be also the aim for the future. Main goal is winning, but do it in a way which also gives new fuels, gives a new side of the sport to the public, and be different. The FIA has found procedural breaches with Alpine and Honda in its F1 2023 cost cap review, but all 10 teams were found in compliance with the budget restrictions last season. While no cost cap breaches were found on the Formula One grid in 2023, the FIA did find 2 procedural breaches with Alpine and Honda as power unit manufacturers respectively, with both currently cooperating with the FIA's cost cap administration. The FIA revealed that all 4 power unit manufacturers, Alpine, Honda, Mercedes, and Ferrari, were in compliance with the 2023 review, with this being the first season that financial regulations were being monitored for Formula One's engine makers. But procedural breaches for Alpine and Honda, the latter Red Bull's power unit partners, were found. The nature of the breach was not identified specifically by the FIA, but these breaches can be defined by rule breaks such as late submissions of documents, submitting paperwork deemed inaccurate, incomplete, or misleading, or failure to follow requests by the CCA. In a statement, the FIA confirmed all 10 teams and all 4 PU manufacturers were within the 2023 budgetary constraints, but added in the case of Alpine and Honda, the CCA confirms that although Alpine Racing SAS and HRC Honda Racing Corporation have both been found to be in procedural breach, neither have exceeded the cost cap level. Both Alpine Racing SAS and HRC have acted at all times in good faith and are currently cooperating with the CCA to finalize the matter. Considering the nature of the breach, the complexities of the new financial regulations for PU manufacturers, and the challenges associated with their first year of implementation, it is the CCA's intention to propose to these 2 PU manufacturers to settle their respective breaches by means of an accepted breach agreement, ABA. A summary of the ABAs, if accepted by these 2 PU manufacturers, will be published once finalized as provided for by the financial regulations. This is not the first example of a procedural breach in the cost cap era, with Williams having been fined $25,000 in 2022 for failing to file their 2021 accounts on time. Aston Martin were later fined $450,000 for a procedural breach of their own that season, relating to incorrectly excluding and/or adjusting costs surrounding the building of their new Silverstone factory. Both teams acted in good faith and took an accepted breach agreement, ABA, to settle their cases. And in Aston Martin's case, the FIA clarified, there is no accusation or evidence that AMR, Aston Martin Racing, has sought or obtained any undue advantage as a result of the breach. Ex-Haas team boss Günther Steiner can see Max Verstappen to Mercedes happening in F1 2026, and so thinks George Russell could be screwed. So, in the opinion of Steiner, the way that Russell can ensure his Mercedes future is by comfortably outperforming his F1 2025 rookie teammate, Kimi Antonelli. After months of speculation, Antonelli's expected call-up was confirmed by Mercedes for F1 2025, the Italian and Russell creating a homegrown lineup for the Silver Arrows with both drivers graduates of the Mercedes junior team. Antonelli was not alone in being talked about as a contender to take the place of Ferrari-bound Lewis Hamilton for F1 2025, as Mercedes were also linked with a swoop for Red Bull's Max Verstappen, team principal Toto Wolff stating publicly that he would love to sign Verstappen. That has not happened for F1 2025, but with the new chassis and power unit regulations coming into play from the following year, Steiner thinks there is a good chance of Verstappen to Mercedes happening. Speaking on the Red Flags podcast, it was put to Steiner that Verstappen to Mercedes could spell bad news for Russell. Yes, could be screwed, Steiner responded. But I think he's aware of this, and the only one sick to prove his worth is by having the results against Kimi Antonelli. To that point, it was suggested to Steiner that 1 year against an inexperienced rookie teammate would not be enough for Russell to prove it. Steiner argued that it would all come down to the manner in which Russell outperforms Antonelli, if he does. Yeah, but it's also how you beat a rookie, said Steiner, if you dominate him. Like at some stage, as much as Toto loves Kimi, if he doesn't deliver, I think the love is over pretty quick. It is conditional on your performance. I love you as much as you perform. Sky F1 pundit and 2016 world champion with Mercedes Nico Rosberg has also claimed Russell's seat is not safe at all, predicting another move from Mercedes for Verstappen. But ahead of the Antonelli announcement, Russell spoke of an indefinite future with Mercedes. It's something we've not spoken about at all, to be honest, said Russell, in regards to his Mercedes future when speaking to the media, including planetf1.com. There's a lot of conversations going on which are quite entertaining to read, but from my side, I'm not focused on any of that. I'm just focused on my driving. Russell picked up his second F1 career win at the 2024 Austrian Grand Prix, while he also took the checkered flag in Belgium, only to be disqualified from the results due to his Mercedes W15 being underweight. Adrian Newey has responded to claims Red Bull's performance drop-off has coincided with the announcement he will be leaving the team next season. Newey's next move was announced on Tuesday, as it was confirmed he will be heading to Aston Martin after months of speculation about his plans following a departure from Red Bull in March 2025. Red Bull has seen its performance advantage from last season, and the start of the F1 2024 campaign reeled in by McLaren, along with Ferrari and Mercedes also strengthening as the season has progressed. Both Max Verstappen and Christian Horner firmly denied there was any link to Newey's departure playing a part in the team being caught up. Instead, staying the wider team has its part to play in turning around their fortunes. The man himself believed he was in no position to comment either, having not worked on the RB20 since the Japanese Grand Prix in April, while acknowledging that he held a suspicion putting his upcoming exit alongside Red Bull's dominance ending would have been part of the story of the season. When the theory of there being a connection between Red Bull's performance drop and the announcement of his departure having been a narrative this year was put to him, Newey told the Autocar podcast, "I had a suspicion that it might be. I have heard it. I have to be honest, I don't really read the press for a kind of personal reason going back to my Leighton House days, but the reality is I can't comment. I really can't comment because once I'm out, and so that means I haven't been able to contribute to the development of the car since April. But why the team is being less competitive recently? I don't know because I'm not involved. I'm in this sort of slightly odd period of semi-garden leave at the moment, inasmuch as the last time I was involved with the Formula One car here was up to and including the Suzuka race weekend at the end of April," he added. "Since then, I've been out of Formula One, but have been concentrating my efforts on the RB17 track car." Seven-time Formula One world champion Lewis Hamilton has shown interest in purchasing a team in MotoGP, claims Liberty Media CEO Greg Maffei. It was announced in April that Liberty would acquire 86% of the shares of Dorna Sports, the Spanish company which has owned MotoGP since 1992. The deal was valued at $4.2 billion, with the remaining stake staying with MotoGP management, and in August Liberty confirmed it was selling an $825 million stake in F1 to fund the purchase. The acquisition of MotoGP will present Liberty with the chance to revolutionize the pinnacle of motorcycle racing in the way it has with car racing since taking over F1 in 2016. Liberty has overseen a boom period for the World Championship, with its appeal at an all-time high, increasing value and revenue streams, and leading to plenty of interest in its MotoGP venture. When we announced the acquisition on MotoGP, it's a great example. We had immediately people call up and say, "I want to buy a team," including people like Lewis Hamilton, Maffei told the Goldman Sachs Communicopia Plus Technology Conference. Why? Because they saw what had happened in Formula One and they want to follow. We had major distributors call and say, "We want to be involved." And unfortunately, I had to tell them we really can't talk about that until we get EU approval. But we'd love to talk once we get it. I think there's an opportunity when you're at the league level to take advantage of those changes that you can make. When you're at a team level, in general, teams don't cash flow as well. Not absolutely true. NFL teams cash flow pretty well, but in general, it's really big multiples of cash flow, and we're still too traditional in wanting that cash flow. But in addition, your ability to change the dynamics, to set the stage and do the things that you want are far better, far easier, more manageable. Still takes time, but you can get it done at the league level. In a way, it's very difficult at the team level. Ownership of F1 has certainly given Liberty the opportunity to instigate change and open it up to a new fan base, particularly in the United States. Now it hopes to work the same magic with MotoGP, with Maffei ready to put similar plans in place. MotoGP is to start with, it's an unbelievably exciting product, he said. I don't know if many of you have seen the racing, but to see people driving motorcycles 220 miles an hour, 6 inches from each other, it's wild, and the overtaking there is incredibly impressive. It is unfortunately one that is too little known here in the United States and around the world. There's interest in Asia and other places, but the real heart of it has been in Spain and Italy, to some degree France. The opportunity to expand it. We saw what we were able to do with Formula One by telling the stories, making them humanized, making the story larger than just about the car, the technology, but also about what the drivers were doing, what was going on behind the scenes, telling those stories, making sure the world understood the breadth of what was going on. But also, we did a lot to improve things like improving what you can see on the screen, making our fans understand the story better. All of those are things that can be helped here. Under Liberty's watch, the number of F1 races in the United States has increased from just the US Grand Prix in Austin to also having the Miami Grand Prix and Las Vegas Grand Prix on the calendar, with Maffei eyeing similar growth in the country for MotoGP. Frankly, growing in the US, they have one race in Austin for which they receive relatively modest revenues from TV and the like, he added. There's an opportunity to improve that. The opportunity perhaps for a second race in the US. All of those, I think, are interesting in ways that look familiar to us from Formula One and hope we can replicate here. Mercedes team principal Toto Wolff is viewing the upcoming F1 rounds as a chance to positively bounce back from Monza. The Italian Grand Prix was a difficult round for the team, with Lewis Hamilton and George Russell crossing the line in 5th and 7th respectively. Prior to the summer break, Mercedes was consistently challenging at the front of the grid. It took 3 race wins in the 4 rounds before the hiatus, but has been unable to carry its front-running form into the next stage of the season. Having analyzed data from the weekend at Monza, Wolff highlighted the upcoming events in Baku and Singapore as opportunities to showcase its growth. We head to Baku aiming for a better performance than we showed in Zandvoort and Monza, Wolff said. Both were difficult races for us. Our relative pace was not as strong as it was prior to the summer break, and several of our competitors took a step forward. We showed good pace at moments across both weekends, but were unable to unlock this consistently. We have spent the time since then analyzing why this was. We have the opportunity to show we have done the necessary learning and made improvements both for this weekend in Azerbaijan and the following week in Singapore. Following a streak of races at permanent Grand Prix facilities, F1 will descend upon the street circuits of Baku and Singapore. With vastly different characteristics compared to traditional circuits forming the layouts, Wolff is anticipating a challenging duo of events for Mercedes. Both are challenging street circuits, he stated. They are bumpy, have many low-speed and 90-degree corners, but also feature plenty of high-speed sections. They pose a very different test to the ones we faced in the Netherlands and Italy. The traditional European portion of the season is now behind us. We have 8 flyaway races before the checkered flag falls in Abu Dhabi. We are focused on ending the season as strongly as possible. There is plenty of racing left, and we will be fighting for every point possible, starting this weekend in Baku. That's it for this video. I'll see you around.